In this lesson, we will create controls for the creature's arms. Let's get started by setting up our IK system. So we'll head over to the left shoulder. That's Animation, IK Solvers, History Independent. All right, let's go ahead and connect to the wrist. There we go. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for the right side. Again, grabbing the shoulder. We'll apply our History Independent Solver. We'll connect right here to our wrist bone. Now with them both selected, we'll go to Tools, Manage Layers, and have them stored in the IK's layer. All right, sweet. Let's also just go in and freeze their transforms for now. We'll have them renamed. So I'll just go ahead and grab one of the other IK goals we've already renamed. I'll go ahead and copy that name, paste that in, and that's going to be L Arm 01. So that's High IK L Arm. Let's go ahead and copy that and use that to rename the one on our right arm. All right, sweet. So once we've managed to take care of that, it's now time to build our control objects. So we'll head over to Create. Let's go ahead and make how about a pyramid? So we'll go ahead and add that to our scene. We don't have to make it so large, so let's go ahead and adjust its size. We'll head over to the Modify panel. Let's go ahead and use 0.4 for the width, the depth, and our height. All right, once we've managed to do that, we will go ahead and right-click and choose Convert to Editable Poly. Let's also go ahead and recolor this object. And then, since it's a control, we know it needs to get stored in the controls layer, so we'll go ahead and add it there. All right, great. Now at this point, let's say we go ahead and quick align it over to our IK goal. Remember, we're going to want to use this to control the orientation of the wrist and the position of our IK goal, so we want the pivot point to be right here. And that way, as we start to rotate this object, we're just rotating the wrist. If we, let's say, move this away and start rotating, it's actually going to shift the entire arm, and we'd have to do a lot of counter keying just to fix any popping issues and, let's say, the elbow. All right, so it's just best to make sure that the pivot point is right at the IK goal so that we don't have to worry about that counter keying issue. All right, next, what I'd like to do is just go ahead and rename this object. That's going to be Anim L Arm 01. And then we can go ahead and take a look at our model just to make sure that we can move this shape out far enough so it's easy to select. All right, so right now that's not the case. Let's go to our vertices here. Go ahead and grab them all. We'll go ahead and move them forward in our y-axis. All right, sweet. So now it is easy to select. Great. Let's go ahead and make sure we take care of the next side. So again, I'll just go ahead and hide the model. Let's go ahead and also make sure our pivot point is set to pivot point center. Great. Now it's very clear. I'll go ahead and press Control V to clone this object as a copy, and that's going to be Anim R Arm 01. Okay, so from here, we'll now go ahead and press Shift A to quick align this copy over to the right arm. Now let's make sure that we recolor the object. So we'll use that shade of green we've been using. That will work out well. We can go ahead and take our two controls and now have them linked over to our global control, and then we can go ahead and freeze their transforms. Staying with our link tool, let's go ahead and link our IK goals now to their controls. From there, we can go ahead and select these objects. I'll right-click and freeze their transforms. And I'm referring to the IK goals. Almost froze the control objects again. It wouldn't be a big deal, but still, we want to make sure we're freezing down our IK goals. Again, to remember this position here, in case we accidentally go in and let's say start moving this around, it's easy for the IK goal to pop back to the skin pose. All right, sweet. So the next step then is to go ahead and create a system to control the elbows. So remember, it'd be tough to fit a control inside of this tight space, so we'll just go ahead and work with wire parameters. So here's what we can do. With the control selected on our left side, let's say we just go in and we'll create an attribute holder first. And then following that, let's go ahead and right click, choose rename. That's going to be extra controls. Now from here, let's go ahead and press Alt-1 to grab our parameter editor. We'll go to name this elbow. And before I set a from and to range, I'm going to go ahead and click on add. What if we needed to adjust our from and to range after that? Well, it's really simple. Staying in that same editor, the parameter editor here, all we do is go ahead and select the object that has the parameter and click on Edit Delete. And now we can go ahead and select the parameter to edit and then change its properties. Take a look at it, has loaded in. So it's going to be negative 360 and positive 360. Okay, so from here, we can now go ahead and click on Accept Parameter Changes and then Apply Changes. We need to go ahead and do both to make sure all of the changes get set. All right, fantastic. So just go ahead and close this out now. And we can go ahead and essentially work on the same parameter on the right side. Since it's straightforward, I'll go ahead and leave that up to you. Let's go ahead and finish out this left side, and then we can go ahead and add a clavicle control, which won't take much time at all. All right, so we'll just go ahead and select our control object here. Let's go ahead and right click and choose wire parameters. That's modified object, extra controls, custom attributes, elbow, and we'll tie that to our IK goal, transform, swivel angle. All right, so from here, I'm going to do a bottom connection using that lower arrow. And then that's going to be deg to rad to convert degrees to radians for better performance out of this parameter. So let's now go ahead and click on connect and test this out. So as we start to move the elbow, there we have it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and leave the right side up to you, and then we'll go ahead and learn how to lock the wrist down and get to our clavicle control. And then to finish up, again, we just want to double check and make sure we're locking down our transform. So under the hierarchy panel, underneath link info, we can go ahead and lock down what we don't need. All right, so again, just one step at a time. Let's go ahead and take care of the custom parameter we need for the right arm. And then I'll come back and we'll go ahead and take care of the wrists, the clavicles, and we'll go ahead and lock down our controls. Alrighty, so the right elbow has been taken care of. Now, how are we going to lock down the wrists? Well, the same way we've locked down the orientation of the vertebrae. Again, we can go ahead and work with a helper. I'll go ahead and grab one of these since they're already a part of the hidden layer. So let's go ahead and grab the one tied to our thorax. We'll go ahead and press Control V to copy it. And we'll rename it, so that's going to be PTDRV L arm 01. Now, let's go ahead and use Alt-A to align this to our wrist in position and orientation. So we'll make sure all 6 are checked, and we'll go ahead and click on OK. Let's change the display. It's overlapping our IK goal, so we'll go ahead and change this to box. All right, much better. Now from here, let's go ahead and have this linked over to our control object. And then we simply want to take the wrist bone and apply our orientation constraint. So we connect to our helper. Now as we start to rotate our control, take a look. There's no shifting in that elbow at all. You see we're controlling that wrist. And then when we use that same control to move the arm, again, everything works out very well. So we've created an efficient system here. Sweet. Very fun. All right, so let's go ahead and take care of the right side. And again, I'll go ahead and pause the video because the steps are straightforward. You can simply go ahead and clone this helper, bring it over to the opposite side, go ahead and link it, make sure it has been aligned to your wrist so that you can just go ahead and apply your orientation constraint and connect everything back in so that it's all controlled by your arm control. So I'll go ahead and pause the video and take care of that. And there we have it. So our helper on the right side has been connected and everything's following just fine. All right, so guess what? To finish up, we just basically need to make sure that we create our clavicle controls, and then we'll also want to make sure we lock down our properties here underneath the hierarchy panel link info. And since that's pretty straightforward, I'll basically leave that up to you, but just to give you an idea here, we want to just go ahead and, let's say, lock down scale for these controls, but for our leg controls, we know that they're just going to move, so we'll lock down rotation and scale. For the knees, again, we'll lock rotation and scaling control. So let's make sure we do that for the other objects. But now for the clavicles, again, this is really simple. I might actually start with the helper first, since we'll need it anyway to make sure we match its orientation so we can link that back to our control. So with the helper selected, I'll go ahead and clone it with Control V. That's going to be PTDRVL clavicle 01. From here, we can go ahead and use Alt-A to align this over to our clavicle bone. Great. Once we've done that, let's now go ahead and switch its display, just so it's easier to work with. I'll go ahead and set that back to cross, and I'll uncheck box. We'll go ahead and clone this object. We'll rename it PTDRVR clavicle 01. And now we'll use Alt-A to align this over to the right clavicle. All right, so once those are in place, we can go ahead and create controls. This time, let's go ahead and work with a circle. So just go ahead and use one of the shape tools. I'll now go ahead and press Alt-W to move over to the side view. We'll go ahead and create the circle from here. All right, once it's been made, let's go ahead and move back to our perspective view. And we'll use Shift-A to quick align this over to our clavicle bone. This is where we want the pivot to be. Next, if we were to head over to our Modify panel, you'll see that we should probably convert this to an editable spline so we could start to use our vertex of object level to reshape this. Now, here's another idea. Remember, it's a good habit to just go ahead and freeze your X form. So if we go ahead and reset it and go ahead and collapse it down using the first choice, modify or stack result, that's automatically going to convert this to an editable spline. All right, so once we've managed to do that, we can basically go to our vertex of object level now, grab our points, go ahead and move this out. Let's bring our model back just to make sure it's easy to select this. Great. Feel free to go ahead and resize this as well. Grab your scale tool, scale from the selection center. Just go ahead and bring this up a bit more. All right, so once we've managed to do that, again, it's just a matter of mirroring this object to take care of the opposite side. So with it selected, we'll grab our mirror tool, make sure it's a copy. And now let's go ahead and press Shift-A and quick align to our right clavicle. All right, so next, we'd want to essentially just make sure that both of these objects are linked to the thorax. So let's go ahead and take care of that. Let's make sure that they're stored in the controls layer. We can now go ahead and freeze them and rename them. So that's going to be NML clavicle 01. Let's copy this name, bring it over to the right side, and change the L to an R. Let's go ahead and make sure that we're using the same color scheme that we've chosen. So there's that shade of green, and then we'll go ahead and find the shade of blue for the left side. All right, sweet. So once we've managed to do this, we can now go ahead and take our helpers here and link over to our control. Beautiful. So now that step is done. Let's go ahead and orientation constrain our clavicle bones to our helpers. So we'll go ahead and head over to Constraints, Orientation Constraint with the bone selected, and we'll connect to the helper. Let's do the same thing for the right clavicle. Beautiful. So if we were to go ahead and test this out, we should be getting some really nice rotation now from our controls. Sweet. We have already frozen them, so we can use transform to 0 to bring them back. Are they stored in the controls layer? They most certainly are. And for that matter, you can check the other layers, your hidden layer, your IKs. Beautiful stuff. All right, so what's the last step? It's to simply go ahead and lock these down. So we know we'd head over to our hierarchy panel, link info. Since the clavicles should rotate only, we'll go ahead and lock down movement, and we'll lock down scale. So you get the idea. Let's go ahead and do that for the other controls we'll need to lock down. And that finishes up the arms. We're making great progress. We only have a few more areas to rig. And once we're done with that, we'll get right into animation.